Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we'll be making a palazzo trouser, as you can see. And if you're interested in learning how to make this, please ensure to watch. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is to take our measurements. First thing is our waist measurement. Ensure that the waist measurement is not too tight. Okay. And then next will be our hip points, the round hip, our flap. Okay, where you usually wear your trouser to. That would be the position you mark your flap. The next is the high tie, okay, and the full length. So we'll get right into it. I have a piece of fabric here. It's already folded into two. For our trouser, palazzo trouser, I'll be cutting the front first and then cut the back. Okay, so I'm just going to cut out this border because I'll not be needing it. Need a starting point for my waist. You can also do this with the crepe material, whatever material you deem fit. So the first thing we're going to take our vertical measurements. First is the hip point. We have 8 for our hip point. Okay. The next is our flap. Okay, our flap, to get your flap, my flap is 24 divided by 2 minus 2, again for the purpose of the band. So I have 10 as my flap. Just going to mark this out. Then the next thing will be the knee position. For me, it is 18. Then the next will be a full length. You can use whatever desired full length, but you don't want your cloth to be too long, it will be too tacky. If it's too short, it will be shabby. So you just pick any length that's okay for you, that will look nice. Okay. So I'm just going to roll this out properly so you see. So the next thing is for us to do our shaping. Okay, so I want this trouser to be, the palazzo trouser, to be free as possible. So I'll be taking 1 inch from the waist down to the end of my length, the full length of the trouser. I'll be taking 1 inch down. I'll be marking 1 inch down. Okay, I want the trouser to be free from my hip down, so that's why I'm taking that position. So from the hip down, it will have the same line, same outline. Okay, at the end of the day, you see how this will turn out. Okay, if you want to do yours like this, you can, but if you want yours to be tight around the knee area, when you get to your knee points, you take 1.5 inch instead of 1 inch for it. So the next is to put in our measurements. The first is the waist, around waist. Okay, working with a round waist of 30 inches divided by 2, we have 15, and then divide 15 again by 2. So we are working with 7.5 for our round waist. Just going to mark this out. The next thing is to put 1 inch extra for our dart. Now for the front part of our palazzo, there will be no allowance. The allowances will come in the back, so there will be no allowance for the front part. So the next is to mark out our hip. Our round hip is 40 divided by 4, we have 10. Now on the flap line or crouch area, that's where we mark our high round tie. So I'm working with a round tie of 25 inches divided by 2, mark 12.5. So like I said earlier, I want this palazzo trouser to be as free as possible. So I'll be using same measurement for my round tie, for the knee area, and then the full length. So I'm going to mark 12.5 inches at the knee point, and then 12.5 inches at the full length, so that my trouser will be as free as I want it. Okay, but like I said, if you want yours to be tight, you just have to take the round knee measurement for yourself, and then take the measurement, divide it by 2, and then put it down if you want that area to be tight. Okay, so I'm just going to connect this now. Connect the hip point to the waist. I'm just going to mark everywhere. Join our measurements together. The marks made. This palazzo trouser is actually an easy trouser to make, and it was actually fun making them. So I'm just going to mark this out so you can see the lines. Okay, so the next thing is just to cut out. Okay, we have our front piece now. This is what it will look like, looking all nice and clean. So I went ahead to fold another fabric for the back part. Like I said, we are cutting the front first and then cutting the back. So for this part, the part with the crouch should face the place with more material, more allowances. So that, because for the front part or the back part of the palazzo, we're going to be adding extra inches. Like I said, there's no allowance for the front, but the allowances are coming back. So for the allowances, we're going to add 2 inches at the waistline. At the crouch line, we'll add 3 inches. Then other parts 2 inches. So we'll be adding 3 inches just at the crouch parts, the flap area. Then other parts, we are going to add 3 inches. This is because we don't want our flap to be too tight. I remember we have no allowance at the front. So this would be stitching allowance for our palazzo trouser. I'm just going to draw this out and ensure while you're marking out, when you're marking the crouch for the back, it sits on the same line as that of the front. It is very important for you to be on the same line. Okay, it's very important for both of them to sit on the same line. If it's possible, you can just draw out your lines, draw out the line for the waist, the line for the hip, all the lines, the vertical measurements taken, can draw it out so you get accurate measurements. So I'm just going to connect this down to the full length of our trouser. Okay, you notice that for the trouser, the up part of the trouser has a little space. Okay, that's because for the up part, we'll be doing a little bit of increase for the back part of the waist. Okay, so you just watch so you see. Okay, so at the top there, we are going to come up by 1 inch for the back waist. Come up by 1 inch and then slant it down to meet the other end of the front part of the material. Okay, just like that. Okay, just watch. Now for this part, you can decide to just come up for the back by 2 inches. Okay, but for this, what I'm doing right now, I'm going to reduce the front by 1 inch. So that's why I said you can decide to just come up for the back part by 1 inch, by 2 inches instead. Sorry about that. But I'll be reducing the front by 1 inch and increasing the back by 1. This is so that at the end of the day, the trouser will sit perfectly on my waist. Okay, so just going to cut this out. Okay, finish cutting that out. Going to cut the decrease I did in the front part. Now make sure the front and the back they meet at a spot. Okay, so the next thing is to mark our darts. Okay, because we took measurements for that, so we're going to add our darts. Now my dart is 7 inches. My nipple to nipple measurement is 7 inches divided by 2.5, 3.5 plus half an inch for stitching allowance. So I marked down 4 inches for that. Okay, so if your dart is your nipple to nipple measurement is 6 inches, divide by 2 and then add half an inch for that to get your dart. So I'm just going to make a notch here for my dart. Okay, so our trouser is going to have a pocket. That will be our next step, cutting out our pockets for our trouser. So this is what the back part looks like. This is what you should have after cutting it. Okay, I went ahead to cut out a square folded into 4. I have about 4 parts of it there. So I'm going to open up that part because I want it to be 2. Okay, 1 for each part. You can decide to make your pocket as deep as you want, but my pocket here will just end in between my hip point and my crouch line. Okay, so I'm just making a curve here because I didn't want it to be all square. So just make a curve. You can decide to leave it like that and then while stitching make your curve, but I just wanted to make a curve down here for my pocket. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So like I said, I have 2 pieces of it, 1 for each side of the pocket. Okay, so we're going to go down to our machine to stitch down at that. So done that, this is what it looks like. The next thing is for our pockets. Okay, we've not made our markings for the pocket. So I'm going to place this on the floor so it's more visible. Place the pocket on top. Now I'm using the front part of my trouser. Okay, the front facing fronts. Okay, pin it down so we can take our measurements and do our cutout. Okay, going to be placing the both parts of the fronts together and the pockets I've already cut out together. Okay, like I said, you can decide to make your pocket the way you want to, but it has to be comfortable. You don't want to look tacky or shabby while wearing this. It's meant to make you look all nice. So just going to arrange this down. Okay, for the width of our pocket, we'll be going by 2.5 inch. You can decide to make yours 3. I think 2.53 is okay. And then the depth, we're working with the depth of 6.5. Okay, should be something that your hands can enter inside. You're not trying to carry everything inside your pockets, just something comfy. So just going to cut this out. So this is what it looks like after cutting it out. Okay, we're meant to sew this, go over to the sewing machine to stitch this down. Okay, I'm just going to pin it up to show you what it will look like and how you're meant to sew it. Okay, remember we still have it front facing front, the piece for the pocket and the front part of our trouser facing each other. Okay, now the pocket is meant to sit on where we have the hip area, not where you have your crouch line. So you're meant to stitch down, turn to the other end. Okay, press it, make sure you give it a good press for it to be more relaxed. Okay, fold the other part of the material up, make your stitch across. Okay, this is what you're meant to have, and then sew it up. So this is what our pocket looks like after stitching it down. You can see it looking all nice and clean. So the next is to attach our front part to the back. Okay, we're going to place the back trouser, the back part of our palazzo trouser, front facing front. Okay, the front should be facing you, and then the other part of the front part of the trouser, palazzo trouser, place it upon the other part where you have your pocket fixed. That's where you're going to make your stitch. Okay, you're going to just stitch it down. Okay, make sure it's well arranged. Okay, and then for the zip, we're going to leave a little space at the top where our zip is going to sit. Remember, our zip will be at the side of our trouser. Okay, and then we stitch it down. So went ahead to make a space for our zip, like I said. This is what it looks like. Okay, also went ahead to iron this out. So the next thing is to attach our trouser together. So to do this, we're going to be attaching the front part together, the crouch part or the front part together first. Okay, remember, you're always placing your trouser when you're sewing, it's always front facing front. You don't want your threads to be showing in front of your material. Okay, so we're just going to stitch this down with 1/2 inch from the waist area down to where we have the crouch. Okay, just going to stitch that down. So this is what it looks like after doing that. The next is to take our measurements. Okay, and we're going to do this for the back part. Remember, the allowance we added was at the back, so that's where we're going to be taking our measurements. The first thing is to measure our waist. Our waist is 30 inches. Okay, so 30 inches divided by 2, that's 15. We're going to mark down 15 inches right there. Okay, and mark out our hip point. So we're taking accurate measurements. Okay, our round hip is 40 inches. Divided by 2, we have 20. I'm going to mark this out there. Okay, so this will also serve as an allowance for the clothes in case you decide to increase it or something. So we're just going to sew from the waist down to the crouch line. Just watch what I'm marking out. Okay, ensure you take accurate measurements. So we're going to stitch that down now. So this is what it looks like. This is the allowance I was talking about. So the next thing is to join our crouch area together, front to back. Okay, I'm just going to pin this down. So go over to the machine, sew it down. Ensure both of the lines are sitting on the same area, at the same spot. So that's what it looks like. The next is to attach our band. I went ahead to iron my gum stain to the band. I have a band of about 3 inches wide because at the end of the day I want it to be about 1.5 inch. Okay, so I'm just going to stitch this down, start from the inside and then flip it over to the front side and iron, and then attach my zip. So this is what it looks like. I'm gonna head to attach the zip. The trouser is looking all nice. Okay, so I'm just going to take the measurements down because I added extra while taking this measurement. Okay, so that's, like I said, you don't want to look too shabby. Okay, so I'm going to cut this out. Okay, then still fold it up, but firstly I'm going to cut this out. So I'll be cutting this out at exactly 41 inches. Okay, so I'm just going to mark this out. You can decide to still leave it and then just fold it up, whatever you desire. Okay, but I'll be cutting this out for the purpose of this video because I want it to look extra nice. So the last thing we're going to do is to fold up the edge of our trouser. You can decide to just fold it up, fold it once and fold again, but I'll be using a hemming gun for the last part of this trouser to hem the edge of my trouser. So I'll place my hemming gun and then iron it out. So this is what it looks like.